Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We continue in this episode 5, the science behind cluster B personality disorders. It's part 3. Just a reminder, the problem we have is very similar to a toddler being addicted to chain smoking. This is real case in Indonesia. Why is that? Because even though these are adults, their mindset is like a 2-year-old. They are literally stuck in that mindset. They never had the maturity of making intention. That's why they cannot take accountability. You cannot hold them responsible for anything. So this is a problem. So what is this little kid's addiction was cigarette in personality disorders? The addiction is with the thought process. It's intangible. Of course, they also have addiction to drugs and cigarettes and everything else, right? Including addiction to obsession with human beings, all kind of problems. But it starts with addiction to very linear thinking that they developed at childhood. So, discussed in the last presentation, just like the cigarette kid, we have to remove the cigarette from him and he will go through withdrawal. He will not eat anything, have tantrum, and we have to deal with that. For an adult, we deal with that rather than giving them drugs, we treat with hijama. Anytime there is urge, we treat with acupuncture at certain points that I'll show in the next slide. Physical intervention helps with akal or anxiety with heart. So hijama behind heart will help with anxiety and the cognitive dissonance that they go through. Anger issues would be dealt with hijama behind liver points. Sadness and broken heart syndrome, lung, for worry, overthinking, spleen, memory and fear, kidneys.
Listening to music is fucking up your brain, okay? And here's the neuroscience behind why. When you get dopamine from something that you didn't work for, like watching porn, like taking drugs, and in this case, listening to music, it spikes your dopamine, and then your body develops a tolerance. It has to account for it. So it lowers your regular state of dopamine. And so long term, this has psychological effects that completely rewires your brain. Listening to music is fucking up your brain, okay? And here's the neuroscience.
This is the problem. This is not recognized in by most of the people. He mentioned about something you have not worked for. So you're giving yourself pleasure. You get pleasure even from music. And this is, even Muslims do not understand this. Well, music haram, that's fine. But to have the resolve in your mind, to have the yaqeen, they do not really understand what music does. It gives you pleasure without working for it. In another word, this is haram pleasure. And it's a good analogy. This is from psychology sites. You have a dopamine level in our brain, and we have this tremendous urge for having natural high with the dopamine. So orgasm, natural orgasm gives you that high. But if it is not halal, these guys say if you did not work for it, if it is not halal, right? So watching porn or masturbation or whatever, even rape, you do not return to the baseline. You actually return to something worse. See the point? So any addiction, parallel to that is any addiction will give you quick high. Drug, for instance, give you bigger high than orgasm, and that's why you do not enjoy sex anymore. Later on, sex with somebody else, which would be halal, even self-pleasure you do not enjoy. You see the level? This is with self, and this is with drug. If you interview anybody who has done drugs, this is a fact. And what it does, it brings you down to a so low level. It's called quicksand. You're sinking. You cannot live with it anymore. So what it does with quicksand, imagine you're sinking in a quicksand. Even if you see a person who wants to kill you, like your enemy, and he extends a dagger, sharp dagger, and you know you can cut yourself, and even if you survive, you the guy will kill you. Still, you grab onto it because what you are doing, you are on a survival mode. You're trying to get out for the moment. This is the situation you're in with drugs or any artificial, and this is what a, a narcissistic personality disorder person would go through. Completely hollow, and they have this urge. They have to have that. No matter what happens, they would risk anything to get it. Just like the kid, he wants cigarette. They want this thing so they can get out. Just dagger, give anything, get me out of the quicksand. So you get to the next level and they fall again. And that one is the essence of this addiction. So imagine having that addiction with your thought process. You know you're wrong. You feel that your decisions brought you down this way repeatedly, but you know nothing else. That's the only thing you feel good about. So you want to get out no matter what. So with cluster B patients, the addiction is with the false thought process. They actually get high, being themselves, thinking that I was right. This is the right way. They feel good for the moment, just like this rush. And of course, it becomes a lot more complicated when they get involved with physical addictive substances like cigarette and drugs and obsession with humans, sex addiction, whatever. They don't find peace. And remember, Shaitan knows that peace is with Allah. And he doesn't want human being to be in peace. So what happens with these patients? Whoever they are involved with, they bring down their peace as well. So literally, Shaitan has created these little bombs that explode and destroy many people's lives. These are the points I was talking about. For instance, you have certain urge. These are the points. Oops. Uh, then here, this is the hard point. You have to massage them counterclockwise. This point here, the point here on the near the knee. And this is a very important point that addresses spleen, kidney, and liver. So keep in mind, dopamine actually is released to kidneys because that's where it originates, and it's released from the front part of the brain, which is actually controlled by liver. So when you are feeling that withdrawal symptom from dopamine, you can hijama kidney points as well as liver points. Also, see, dopamine has to be increased to feel good. Cortisol, on the other hand, already causes it. That also originates from kidney. So literally you can have malfunction because of the imbalance in these hormones. And they are dictated by the mental state. So physically you can intervene. See, physically you have to separate them. You have to help physically before you can start talking about cognitive therapy. Just like a child, you cannot reason with a child if you do not separate first. You have to detach from cigarette, right? This is an interesting aspect.
Here's how you know. Here's how you know someone isn't mentally healthy. There's an idea from Carl Jung that completely changed how I understand mental health. Mental illness is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. What he meant is this: you can't avoid the pain of being human. You can only trade it in. A mentally healthy person allows themselves to feel the pain that comes with being human: grief, fear, disappointment, vulnerability. And because they feel it, it moves. But when that pain is avoided, it doesn't disappear, it shows up as something else. Avoid the pain of judgment, and it becomes anxiety. Avoid the pain of grief, and it becomes numbness. Avoid the pain of vulnerability, and it becomes loneliness. Carl Rogers said it this way: when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. Or, as another psychologist, Roland May, put it, when we deny our pain, we deny our growth. That's how you know someone's mentally unhealthy: when they avoid feeling the very pain that would have kept them sane. Here's how you know.
See, this is a real problem. It's very painful to give up an addiction. It's very painful to come back to natural living. It's like you had a fantastic life. You're committing sin left and right, and all of a sudden you have to give up everything. It feels impossible. You cannot live with that. Just like the kid with cigarette. What happens with addicted people? What happens with mental health people? They literally refuse. to address it. Why am I feeling this pain? What do? They give up. They run for the next high. Do you remember the quicksand? He knows that it's a dagger, the guy will kill me. Still, he grabs onto the dagger to get out. So this is a very big problem. What happens once the person gets out and enters Islam? It feels like heaven. Then the person realizes that, my God, I was in hell before. Many people can relate to that emotion. So you'd see a lot of people are talking about if therapy can help. And let's just watch it first, then I'll discuss.
Narcissist. The uncomfortable truth. Can therapy really change a narcissist? Or does it just teach them better ways to hide who they are? Is this a question many people ask after staying too long, hoping love plus therapy would finally be enough? The uncomfortable truth is this: therapy doesn't change someone who doesn't believe they are the problem. And with narcissism, that belief is the core issue. Here's the step-by-step truth most people aren't told. Step 1. Therapy only works when there's accountability. For real change to happen, a person must admit fault without blaming others. Most narcissists don't enter therapy to grow. They enter to prove they're right, to look healed, or to win someone back. Without genuine accountability, therapy becomes a performance. Step 2. Awareness is not the same as change. Some narcissists become self-aware in therapy. They learn the language of emotions, trauma, and boundaries. But awareness doesn't equal empathy. Often, they use what they learn to manipulate better, not love deeper. Step 3. Motivation matters more than methods. A narcissist can sit in therapy for years and still remain the same if the goal is control, validation, or image repair. True change only happens when the motivation is internal, not fear of abandonment or consequences. Step 4. Personality traits are deeply wired. Narcissistic traits are not habits. They are defense mechanisms built over years, sometimes childhood. Therapy can soften behaviors, but it rarely rewires the core personality unless the person commits to long-term, uncomfortable self-examination, something most resist. Step 5. Your healing is not dependent on their change. Waiting for a narcissist to change can keep you emotionally stuck. Healing begins when you stop measuring your worth by someone else's growth and start choosing yourself. The uncomfortable truth? Therapy can help a narcissist change behaviors, but it cannot create empathy where none exists.
You see, we're back to the same problem. A person cannot have empathy unless it's coming from himself. How would you do that for a child? It actually happened. My son, I mentioned that in previous episode. He was 3-year-old, and he was stomping on ants. So I told him, "Oh, don't do that." He said, "Why not? It's fun." I said, "Their mommies will cry." he stopped. So even at that age, I was able to put empathic thought, and he stopped. So much so that he never repeated. Same kid, about 9 years later or 8 years later, in hockey game, his team was losing 6-0, and then in the last 10 minutes they came back, they won 7-6. As I'm driving back, very happy that they came back and they won, he said, "Dad, I feel sorry for the other team." That's empathy. And he was still not teenager. So I think we can do it. It's just Islam takes a different approach. You make dua and you do the therapy by the most loving person. You see, what we do in new science, we give it to a person, a so-called professional, who has nothing to do with your success or not. He doesn't care. And we submit to him because he's doing it for money. Islam is the exactly opposite. Somebody who really cares for success, somebody who can make dua, is the one should be doing therapy. It's very different from whatever new science has been teaching us for the last, 100 years.
Narcissist. Here's how you.
Here comes the next one I mentioned about the most trusting. And what happens, you have to go back and see the past. Most of them develop this disorder at childhood, and because of the father figure, either no father figure or abusive father figure. Of course, that's not all. There could be other abuser, but father figure is the most important one. And this one, actually, this lady makes it clear.
Father or had a bad one, she will not know how to love you, and she will not know how to receive that love either, because her blueprint for love is completely shattered and broken. A father is supposed to be the first love in a woman's life. He is supposed to be her first masculine safety, her first masculine protection. And when he is absent, when he is invisible at home, when he gives little to no attention to her, her nervous system learns one lesson: men do not show up, men do not stay, men do not protect, men bad. That doesn't just go away, that follows her for life. Your parents shape how you connect, trust, and bond. And if the bond is unstable, guess what? The love becomes unstable too. So what happens? Many of these women become hypersexual to get validation from men. They never learn how to be truly feminine. They do not attract men with softness, peace, or stability. They attract them with their sexuality. Because guess what? Sexuality is fast. It hijacks your attention. It creates a chemical illusion of true connection. And also, sex triggers dopamine, which drives that craving and pursuit in the first place. Sex and intimacy also involve oxytocin and vasopressin, which are linked to bonding. So if she never learned safe love, she will chase intense roller coaster love always and use chemistry as a substitute for trust. And then you see the outcomes: divorce, multiple relationships, constant breakup cycles, using sex to heal arguments, and using sex to keep a man from leaving you. That is not love. That is called leverage. If father or had a bad one, she will not know how to love you, and she will not know how to.
but they have the same statistical chance as children raised by just their father. Girls with no fathers in the home have lower self-esteem. No father families more likely to be victims of abuse, especially with single mothers. Children with high BMI more often come from fatherless homes. Here's something: fathers have the fittest children. That was really interesting to me. The more opportunities a child has to interact with biological father, the less likely they are to commit crime or have contact with the juvenile justice system. Okay, another way to say that is men and women who are incarcerated, the population of the prisons mostly encompass fatherless homes. Now, here's something that no one else has mentioned, which I think is cool, and I don't really say this eloquently. If a man and wife raise a child, they're less likely to end up in jail, but they have the same statistical chance as children raised by just their father. A man.
You see, this one highlights the role of father. In Islam, once the father dies, it's called true orphanage. Very interesting. So we're talking about repairing some damage that has been done at early childhood. And the person has been carrying that damage, protecting himself or herself with the false cognition tool. And the solution is to correct that, because we need the cognition tool to correct the addiction is very stuck. It comes back to teaching a toddler how to think. It's nearly impossible task. And that's why recovery is listed as 5%. And that too, they say, well, you can manage a life. You don't necessarily recover. You become self-aware and you can be aware of your things that you're doing. It doesn't mean that you become an empathetic person, which I don't believe. In Islam, there is no such thing. You can be fully cured.
Raise a child.
So let's look at the traits of toddler. And this is listed as when adults have it, is called mental illness. So have an unreasonably high sense of self-importance. Every toddler thinks that you have this 2-year-old, what is it called? The most difficult child is the 2-year-old, they say. And they said he thinks he's the king, right? The whole world revolves around him. So they feel high sense of self-importance. So imagine if an adult thinks that becomes a problem. That becomes a pathological problem. So they are used to constant excessive admiration, feel that they deserve privileges and special treatment for no reason. A child has good reason, because any parent will admit that the whole life revolves around that. I actually forgot how my life was before my children were born. We had no memory. That's how impactful children are. But for an adult to expect that is a problem. So they expect to be recognized as superior even without achievements. I remember my second child, he would just jump a little and I said, wow, how do you do that? And he would smile as if he has accomplished a very big deal. But when an adult thinks that I am superior to everybody, that's a problem. Because there is no connection. For an adult, it has to be real. It cannot be fantasy. For a child, it's perfectly all right. And they make achievements and talents seem bigger than they are. That's why these patients would lie non-stop. For a child, it's not a lie. For an adult, it's a lie. Although one can argue that if the adult doesn't have any empathy, he doesn't have the ability to make intention. So it's not a lie, technically. So we have preoccupied with fantasies about success, power, brilliance, beauty of the perfect mate. So they fantasize about their mate. It's like a fairy tale. For a child, it's perfectly normal. It's like a toddler saying, many toddlers actually say they're going to marry their father or mother because that's their perfect. But others say, I was one of those, that I'll marry a princess and whatever. For adult, that's a problem. You have to have reasonable. You cannot say, I'm going to marry Baron Trump, because that's a fantasy. That's not a plan. That's a fantasy. And this notion that I'm superior to others is very common. For children, it's real. For adults, it's pathological. They are always critical and look down on people. That used to happen to me all the time. I would be called Dumbo by my son, and I remember I was in a plane. I was putting the seat belt wrong way, and see, my younger son, he said, "How do you do that? How do you manage to be so stupid?" Of course, they know that it was not because of lack of respect. They know that professionally I'm top of the world, but they had this notion that dad is dumb. They're the smartest. And many people said, actually, oh, how are you indulging them like that? They would not respect. I proved them all wrong. They expect special favors. They take advantage of others to get what they want. You see, if parents are not giving, they will ask grandparents. See, they are not sinister, but they do plan. They do lie to get away. For adults, that's a problem. Children have no empathy. Just like killing the ants, they have no problem. But when they do, it should be recognized. And they are not. Bad parents would not recognize that. Remember that the last episode, we saw the kid, he was rescuing. He was rescuing the. This. Excellent. He was rescuing the ducklings, and then as a reward, the neighbor cooked the duck and gave it to them, and he felt like so stupid. So they were actually punished for their empathy. They behave in an arrogant way, brag a lot. I I remember our neighbor. I think he's mayor now, mayor's son, 4-year-old, came to our house and telling my son that my dad farts so good that we can hear it from the basement. Like he's bragging about the sound of his dad's fart. So it's just insane, but for a child, it's perfectly normal. But for adult, of course, a child would fantasize about best car, best office. For adult, that's a very big problem. If they want to have best car and best office without deserving it, just because you can't do that, that's pathological.
Can I join in?
Yeah, what is the question?
What if they worked harder? Like, what if they worked 60 hours in an
Oh, no,
office?
that's exactly without deserving, I said. If they don't deserve it,
If they deserve, like, they'll be
they become impatient and angry very easily. You remember we talked about impatience, some godly quality, divine quality that is with the human only at mental maturity. So they are easily angry, they are easily impatient. But for adult, this is pathological. And of course, they have major problems interacting with others and easily feel slighted. Say, oh, why did he not pay attention? Hey, he's trying to get attention and gets angry because nobody is, he's not given priority. It goes on, and these are pathological conditions for adults. For children, more like for toddlers, these are all natural. So this, for instance, this last one, have secret feelings of insecurity, shame, humiliation, and fear. And for an adult to have a different standard of shame, insecurity, humiliation, that's pathological. Islam defines what is shame. Islam defines what is humiliation. But if we have, Islam defines what is fear and tells you that fear comes from shaitan if it involves dunya. Shame is very clearly, any sin is shameful. If a child has developed a different definition of shame, different definition of security, that's pathological. Different definition of humiliation. So you can ask them, you can ask, what triggers your fear? And you realize that what triggers your shame? And you learn a lot about the mindset. Real bad sins, they are not shameful. Silly things are. They feel humiliated by strange things.
Like me.
Not real humiliation. They feel insecure. Believe it or not, they feel most insecure when they're loved, because they do not have the trust. So who loves you most? Allah does. So they feel most insecure when they are in presence of Allah.
Mhm.
So when you are praying, you have no trust that Allah is hearing you. So no, he's not going to do anything. You see the problem? So everything is turned upside down. Yes, what is the question?
Let me too. Sorry for the year. But no. Look, imagine if someone was embarrassed in this situation. Look, for example, someone accidentally chewed with their mouth open, like pure accident. They didn't do it on purpose. Like just for half a second. Then they feel extremely embarrassed, even though the rest of the family thinks that is really funny, like in a good way.
That's true.
Is that bad type of or is that good type of?
No, for children it's always good.
But I mean for adult, like adults is embarrassed by an
Yeah,
accident.
then if it's not logical, for instance, many people would feel embarrassed because they are eating with hands because somebody will criticize. What is the example we have from Prophet's time? They said, I should be embarrassed if I'm not following Sunnah, right?
Let my child eat.
The Science of Lies by Cluster B. Adults. And we talked about primary lie. Primary lie is when your intention is not to please Allah, anybody but Allah. If you are pleasing anybody but Allah as your primary intention, then it's a lie. What happens with toddlers as well as cluster B adults? They are incapable of making intention. Talk to them, they may have never thought about it. They don't think. So their whole life, they live like a toddler.
Like a prison.
No organized thought. And that's why they cannot be held accountable. I cannot emphasize this more. There is no point trying to hold them accountable because it's not there. They're like a child. You cannot beat up a child because she has broken the dish or even kill the ant or hit somebody. It's not there.
Really?
And people make that mistake of trying to correct them, just like other idiots tell you that you have to teach the children how to be disciplined. Those are nonsense. Secondary lie, for instance, those are what? Stating fictions. Did you do it? No. Immediately, right? Did you break the dish? No. Why did you do that? Because. Right? There is no discussion. For a child, it's very common. And it's not problematic at all. And actually, they are very imaginative. They will make up lies all the time. It's a sign of creativity. For adults, this is a very big problem. So if you find an adult who is very easily lying, making up things, that means the child is stuck in that infant mode. It's not evil because they are not accountable, remember? They are not accountable. They are just pathological. Give an example, a few examples. If they believe that anger will trigger faster result, if I can get somebody angry, then he will do it right away. They would just say it, just to trigger anger. It's not logical. It aligns with their model. That's what they believe. It's not a lie for them. In their mind, they are not lying at all. Always happens. Tertiary lies, where you, by non-disclosure, but by not telling the whole truth, you are lying, right? We say that. This one is completely absent. Children are not going to disclose anything. Unless All of a sudden, randomly, they will tell you. And that's why, even psychiatrists will do this, psychologists will do this, to find out if the child has been abused, physically or sexually or whatever. They will ask questions like, constantly asking questions. Did somebody do that with a toy or with a doll? You have to really dig deep to find an answer. For adult, it's a very similar problem. They don't tell you. Especially now they are adult, they know that I will be judged. But sometimes they'll tell you randomly. Because remember, they don't think before saying anything. So sometimes they will bring it up and disclose all kind of things. Then if you try to probe, what are you doing, judging me?
Don't mind lying because we don't view the truth the same way that you do. And before I get into this, this was my thoughts from before I was self aware as a narcissist. To us, the truth is just whatever you make it. There's no inherent value in the truth. Narcissist thinks that the truth and lies can be used for good and bad. It doesn't matter which is which. To us, the only important truth is whatever everybody else believes. People ask me if it was hard for me to keep my lies in order. It wasn't, because those effectively became parts of my truth. Like, in the back of my head, I kind of knew that it wasn't true, but effectively it was just as real to me as what actually happened. And this is why we assume people are lying to us all the time, because we think that people might be using the truth or they might be using lies. There's not much of a difference to us. So narcissists like myself don't mind lying because we don't view the truth the same way that you do. And before I get into this, this was my thoughts from.
This is very interesting perspective. They actually think that everybody lies anyway. And this is a very common feature. And because of lack of empathy, for them, the whole world is just like them. They cannot put in their head, they cannot put the notion that others are different. They have different background, they have different way of thinking. They do not. Remember, they are addicted to certain way of thinking. They cannot break out of it.
Don't mind.
After we review lies, let's review the truth. And particularly with regards to questions. When you talk about psychotherapy, questions are the most important, and Prophet said, pure to ignorance is to ask. This is a very important cognitive tool. So right from the beginning, true questions. What are true questions? Because of course we know that true questions are the only ones that will lead us to gain knowledge or remove our ignorance. True questions are motivated with static intention. Nia is to please Allah. A child is never able to ask this question because they don't have the ability to make intention. They cannot make nia. Remember, that's the most important feature of a child. They cannot make nia. Same with full-blown cluster B patient. They do not make intention. They are spontaneous, just like a child. So you notice that they are incapable of asking questions that are true. They will always ask questions that answer of that will satisfy their suspicion or whatever. They already know the answer. Their preconceived notion. Then there is Bonnie style questions. And this one is forbidden by Allah in Quran 2:108. So don't ask those kind of questions. What are they? Buddhist style question? They are not well intended. Their intention is actually bad, meaning they want to trap questions, things like that. Children cannot ask these questions because they don't have bad intention. They do not have the ability to make bad intention. Secondary lies, based on secondary question, based on secondary lies. So the primary lies, children cannot do it. Neither can a cluster B patient. Questions based on secondary lies. If somebody has a cognitive model in mind, that's the one he will use to ask question, to validate the premise that he or she started off with. For instance, if they believe that anger will trigger fast result, they will say things to trigger anger. So again, oriented by this line of questions, is motivated by finding quickest path. They are still lies, but not because of bad intention, because these are not factual. These is not logical. So most important task in this is to recognize that children as well as cluster B patients are incapable of asking questions that are true. We'll also see how they are incapable of answering questions. And this is the biggest problem. We heard a lot, you see a lot of videos saying that, oh, they go to therapy only to find out new ways of lying, But bottom line is therapy doesn't work for this reason alone. Even those, the form that fill out with all those answers, they constantly figure out, the smart ones, how to cheat, and they can deceive. As it is said that psychopaths can pass lie detection test very easily. They don't flinch. So actually, anosognosia is actually mental disease. It makes you incapable of finding your health condition. They find explanation. I said, no, this is not a pathological condition. And when it comes to mental health, this is much more intense. So they have in this state of denial. No way they will look into themselves and say, I have a problem. And if you try to tell them, then all hell breaks loose. Then there is why questions. For adults, once you know how to make intention, why questions are the key. So much so that, in a lawyer will never ask you why. Because it exposes the intention. And if the lawyer knows your intention, then he already knows if you're guilty or not. Then it will become unethical for them to represent you if you are actually guilty. So they do not ask hard questions. Children, however, they're constantly asking hard questions. When it comes to answering question, Shaitan never answers.
I'm not trying to be polarizing. I'm trying to ask. I think it is extraordinary that we are here in a hearing about science and about women. And for the record, it's women who get pregnant, not men. I'm not trying to be polarizing. I'm trying to ask. I think it is extraordinary that we are here in a hearing about science and about women. And for the record, it's women who get pregnant, not men.
You see, this fellow, Josh Hawley, interrogated this doctor for 10 minutes, trying to find an answer to a very simple question: can a man get pregnant? And she could not answer. You know why? Because she knows it's a trap. Her core belief, which is LGBTQ, would be challenged, and you're not falling in the trap. They would not answer. It's the same with cluster B patients. They would not answer you. They would deflect. They put it back to you. They will answer question with answer. Answer with another question. In 2017, we wrote our mental health book, the first one. We said they are incapable of answering question. But we talked about bad guys. And we call that deliberate schizophrenia. They are not crazy people. They are deliberately crazy. He's asking a very simple question. And you're a medical doctor. And it's a science forum. He asked a very biological question. Can a man get pregnant? And she would not even answer it. Politically, it's very wonderful.
Oil? What about stealing the oil of another country? Is that right?
Someone that takes money from Hamas, I will not. You always have.
Oh, that's so ridiculous. When you think the U.S. should be taking Venezuela's oil?
Yeah, ask another question, very simple, it's very recent. Should the US take Venezuela oil? What is the response to your Hamas? They would not answer you. Problem is not very different from an adult suffering from these mental illnesses.
To take Venezuela.
I'll stop at that, and inshallah we'll resume in the next episode.